Do you ever wonder why you're so damn tired all the time? So, quick tidbit before I dive in. I got up at 3 a.m. this morning and I heard that's like a thing when you're in perimenopause, premenopause, whichever, that you get up early and you can't go back to sleep. So today is definitely one of those days I'm dragging just a little bit. But larger than that, if you wake up tired all the time or wondering why you're so tired, let me tell you something. It's probably not work. It's probably not what you ate. It's probably not your age. It's probably not hormones, even though I just totally use that conveniently to blame it on. It's probably because your lack of boundaries. We've been taught that as good leaders, we're always going to be available. As good partners, we're going to be endlessly patient. As good women, we're not going to ruffle feathers and we're just going to be, not to bring in the demure trend, but yes. And that success means saying more and saying more often than other people until sometimes we just feel there's nothing left, right? And so where does that leave us? Tired, yes, but maybe also a little resentful, a little overextended, right? And some of us will call it loyalty or just doing the right thing. But at the end of the day, there's a price, right? So welcome to Beyond the Quo. I'm Stacey Luces, your host. And if you're listening today, chances are that you're someone that many people, probably the majority of the people in your life, lean on. Not only that, you're probably holding it down at work. You're probably holding it down in the household, especially I know a lot of single parents listen to this podcast. If you are a business owner, a founder, an executive, you're probably holding it down in business, in your community, and even, dare I say, your inbox. And so a part of this is, you've achieved so much and that some way, somehow along the way, you've started leaking your power. The last couple of episodes have been me flying solo because I really wanted to dig into some topics and really run through what the consequences of some of these things, such as giving up your power, your personal power, such as having no boundaries, such as leading inauthentically, do, right? What the not only physical, but emotional and spiritual consequences, but also more importantly for me, and for those of you that have been listening to me for a couple of months now, what some strategies are, some micro shifts. I often talk about these 2mm shifts that enable a day-by-day progressive sort of elaboration in terms of the way that you can improve your situation, improve your happiness, improve your health. And a lot of times we forego that and stay in the status quo. And in order to get beyond the quo, beyond that feeling of stuckness, I love to give you little strategies that enable these 2mm shifts. And so that's what we're going to do today, right? This episode is going to be a boundary check. I think people have a hard time saying boundaries because we think that it's an all or nothing game. It's either or. And I want to say that during the course of this episode, I want to break that assumption a little bit and give you different perspectives to consider when you think about not only your boundaries personally for yourself, but the boundaries you hold in your relationships, the boundaries you hold in your career, your job. And if you are in a leadership role, the boundaries that you hold, not only as a leader, leading others, whether that's, professionally, personally, or in your communities, but the way that you show up with strong, healthy, meaningful boundaries actually impacts morale. It impacts the circles that you're in. It impacts your family. And so some of it warm and fuzzy and some of it not so much. So really, we're going to talk about not being nice as much, but being firm. And we're going to talk about radical boundaries, right? As a leadership sort of power move, as a way to not only get really grounded in your life and lean into more closely aligning with your core values, but as a love language to yourself, right? As having integrity with yourself. as a signal that your time, your energy, your values are not something that you're willing to compromise on. And in the instances that you do compromise on them, it is a deliberative process. It's a deliberative choice. And it's not you just bleeding that away because that's what people are used to, right? So today we're going to talk about, like I mentioned, 4 types of boundaries: personal, relational, your career, and then leadership. And then I love to throw in some statistics, right? I'm a nerd. We've already established that. So I love digging into whether the things that I hear about from my coaching clients. I am an executive coach and a business strategist. I talk to leaders pretty much all day. I give workshops. We do group coaching. I've got a private membership community that is called the Rising Beyond Power Collective, where there are about 100 women leaders from across the globe in there. And so this is a juicy topic for a lot of us, this concept of boundaries. But I also like to break that against kind of real world, right? Like, is boundaries trending? I know that sounds weird, but is it just something that we are witnessing here in America because of all of the things that are happening externally, and many times out of our control? Or is this something just prevalent across kind of different, in different countries and different creative enterprises? Like, is it just us? So we're gonna tap on that a little bit. So some stats: 62% of professionals report burnout due to lack of clear boundaries. This is by the American Psychological Association. And another nice statistic that I want to bring forth is, and this goes back to when you lead yourself, you kind of lead others, right? Leaders who model strong boundaries see 23% higher retention on their teams. This is by Gallup, and this was in 2022. And then I love to sort of pull in not only the leadership, women in leadership perspective, but of course, women of color. Women in leadership roles are twice as likely to absorb emotional labor in the workplace, leading to faster burnout. And this was by leanin.org in 2021. So we're seeing kind of this year-over-year trend, and this is well past the pandemic. So we can't really, that sort of twerked things in a different way. But we're seeing this kind of year after year in different perspectives. And I am the poster child. I've been super transparent. I'm always open about the fact that my journey, both as an immigrant and, working 3 jobs through college and working for Fortune 100 companies and working in high stress environments like the Pentagon and DHS and FEMA and all of these things, led to a massive burnout, right? And that burnout not only was my wake-up call, but it almost cost me my life. It almost took me away from seeing my children grow up. I've got an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old. And a big part of why I loved the idea of a podcast was not only being able to share my story and strategies for people, but also curating guests that are living beyond the quo and are doing it differently, and sort of sourcing all of these amazing stories and journeys and transformational strategies for you, right? So this isn't just made up stuff. Literally, in my practice right now, there are no clients, none, who are not suffering from health complications as a result of chronic stress, as a result of lack of boundaries. And I'm not just talking about like big boundaries, right? That counts, but it's like little boundaries too. It's like not being able to eat lunch. It's like not having time to work out. It's like you having to use the restroom and you had the thought that you should go at maybe 10 a.m. and it's now 3 p.m. and you're like, oh, I haven't gone to the bathroom yet, right? So it's like these tiny little breaking of promises with yourself and lack of integrity with yourself that taken together create these massive consequences, not only in our health, but our mental wellness, our relationships suffer. And so I thought it was really important to show you that there is an absolute avalanche effect to not having appropriate, strong, meaningful boundaries. And like with anything, you guys, this is a prescription-based model, right? What works for me is going to be different for you, right? In my season of life, I'm in my 40s. I am in the thick of midlife. I'm in the sandwich generation. I am dealing with young adults, managing sort of their transition period. And so for me, my season of life means that I have to have different boundaries. And for you, some of what I share, whether it's strategies to identify what you need or strategies to support you where you are, they're going to be different, right? So none of this is rocket science in the sense of it has to be precision perfect, right? And so I guess the bottom line before I dive in is you can't lead a powerful life. A lot of us want to be peak performers. We want to lead from a position of power. We want to make money. We want to travel the world and do all of these amazing things. And I'm here to tell you, you can totally do that. But if you have leaky boundaries, you can't keep showing up for everybody else if that means ghosting yourself, if it means saying yes to everything that is chaotic and not having enough time for any peace in your life, whether that's even a morning cup of coffee. Because there are some of you, including my beloved husband, that he walks around with his coffee cup, you guys. He works at a hospital. And like, I swear, Kevin heats that sucker up like at least 5-6 times before 10 a.m. and probably comes home with half a cup of coffee because he didn't finish it, right? And so I feel like that used to resonate with me, and it may resonate with some of you, right? So we're going to dive in. Let's dig into my first and favorite one, which is personal boundaries. This is so hard. There are some of you listening that not only are you single parents, but you maybe have small kids, and it's so hard. I remember the times when I would use the bathroom and they would bring their little stool in and sit down, their little bench. Or they would just barge in, right? So I get it. And it's a season. Trust me, it's a season. But there has to be a way that you can get comfortable with saying no and not feeling guilt about that. If your calendar is full, but really on the inside, you just feel hollow, that is a clear indicator that it's not a time problem. It's a boundary problem, right? So personal boundaries are the foundation of self-trust. You guys, I talk a lot about having integrity with ourselves and that we will show up for everybody else except ourselves. And I always use this analogy of if I had a workout buddy, I would show up for my workout buddy consistently. And if it were just me having to go work out, I would probably skip it because get too busy, start on that email earlier or that call, do my research earlier. Seriously, you guys, we show up for other people many times before we show up for ourselves. And so this foundation of self-trust, because we've eroded it throughout the years, I don't know, we sometimes can't just trust our own word. And that really sucks. I don't know about you, but that feels gross, right? So these are not about controlling other people. Boundaries are not about controlling other people's action. It's just about managing your own reaction and your own energy around what someone else chooses to do. It's about the things that you're going to tolerate and the things that are no-fly zones. It's about if your phone is constantly buzzing because your team has to ask you every little bit of question. It's about whether they start pinging you at 6 a.m. versus maybe 8:39, which is office time. It's about maybe overcommitting on the weekends. And like I said, I get it. There are going to be some days when you've got big project deliverables or big things are happening and you need to dig in and show up. But if that is the expectation and not the exception, you may want to recheck some of these. All right. So signs you're too loose with your boundaries or quite possibly don't have any personal boundaries. One, you say I'm fine. And oh my God, we all say I'm fine. Even I this morning said I'm fine, but you feel depleted after every social obligation. You never actually rest even on vacation. That feels gross too. I remember I was on vacation once. We were in St. John's. Was it St. John's? Yeah, we were in St. John's. I was in a hammock, like overlooking the bay, you guys, eating on a beautiful turkey sandwich. And I was responding to emails at work. And my husband came out and he gave me that disapproving look. And yeah, I thought I was hot shit and that, people needed me. Yeah. But, and this is a big one, you feel resentment towards people who don't respect your time. But here's the thing, if you've never made your limits clear, that's a non-starter. When I started implementing personal boundaries, so a couple of things I did. One, when I worked in the federal government, we had a fitness directive. And what that meant was 3 hours a week, you could take admin leave, no more than 60 minutes, including, prepping and wind down to do some physical activity. And I had that thing signed for years and never used it. And yet I was pre-diabetic. I had gestational diabetes after my son, during my pregnancy with my son, and never quite got those levels back to where I wanted them. I was always just hovering right there, right? So I knew physical activity and diet and all of these things were super important. Another indicator is that saying yes when other people clearly have no problem saying no. So being the one that stayed late, being the one that came in early, being the backup for everybody, right? Like the backup person. I don't know. Sometimes it feeds our ego. We feel needed. Another boundary I put in place was if there were meetings scheduled between noon and 1 or 12:30, I started asking for an agenda and like outcomes and like what was my role in the meeting. Because there came a time when people would just have a meeting because it was convenient for them and they would just invite everybody because they didn't quote unquote want to miss anyone who should have been in the conversation. Yet there was no true definitive agenda. There was no true definitive role for why you were invited. And there was no true identification of outcomes. So really you were just bleeding your lunch or scarfing your food or worse yet, skipping everything to attend these meetings. What was another one I did? Oh, so when my kids were younger, these are just personal boundaries that I implemented and I should have done it sooner. I'm just sharing with you like what worked for me. Another one was there were times, obviously, high tempo times. I worked at FEMA and obviously if there was a disaster or something like that, we had very irregular, strenuous hours. But for the most part, when it was, sunshine days, kind of just said, hey, after 5:30, I won't be available. I will probably check again between 8 and 8:30 because that's when my kids went to bed at 8 o'clock. And if it was urgent, I would respond. But before, I would be laying in bed at 9 p.m. responding to emails. And there was no explicit conversation that was the expectation, you guys. But because everybody else was doing it, I felt that part of that work culture was this ultra responsiveness and it bled into everything else. And so if you are hearing yourself in some of these stories, quickly realize that this is something that you got to check, right? All right. So what can you do? What can be some reset strategies? Here are 3 things. 1, what's your non-negotiable list? Write down 3 things that you're going to protect weekly. For me, like I said, it was my tiny little sacred lunch break. It was my fitness, executing on that contract, right? And getting those 3 hours of movement for my body in. because it really impacted my health downstream. And then the other one was, hey, I'm not, after 5:30, I'm done. And I will check. So I gave sort of an alibi, right? Like I will check in between there, in case something happened, but it was going to be the exception. It wasn't going to be the expectation anymore. So for you, what are the 3 things that you want to protect? Solo mornings, whether you have maybe doctor's appointments or therapy, whether it's lunch. I mean, I don't know, but pick 3 things. So another reset strategy, in addition to kind of 3 non-negotiables, are what's a boundary phrase you're going to use? Sounds weird, right? Here's an example. If you've got a bunch of girlfriends and you are the mama in the bunch who's married and has a business. Wow, that looks and smells like me. And you've got some friends that are single. Maybe they have shared custody. So there are weeks and weekends when they are just hanging out, chilling. And you know that puts a strain and a pressure on you, but you just can't figure out a way to dish out of it. A phrase is, thanks for thinking about me. I'm not available, but I wish you so much fun. Or something like that. Or maybe it is, hey, if you guys, every third Thursday, I'm available. Maybe if you can schedule your activities or your happy hours during that time. A friend of mine, one of my best friends, she actually said, still lives in Maryland. She says that her friend group down there, they had trouble coordinating a day and a time that worked for everybody. And so now they just kind of have a standing day and a standing place. So it's like, hey, down at Bugaboo Creek, I'm just making that up, every 4th Friday at between 4 and 7, whoever can make it come. And it's gotten to the point where I think she probably is able to go most times, but because it's so routine and everybody was able to find that compromise, they can kind of manage the other things, right? But that in a way is a boundary also, right? And then an audit prompt is the 3rd thing you can do for personal boundary setting, which is, so a lot of people do the red flag, green flag thing. For me, is this a hell yes? Or am I saying yes because I'm nervous or anxious about disappointing someone else? This is the hardest one for me. I'm a firstborn. I'm one of 5 kids, come from a huge family, and there's a lot of familial obligation to be a good girl, be a good whatever. And so saying no is hard because you think, oh my God, what are they going to say about me? What does that say about me? And so disassociating, having a personal boundary from it meaning you're a bad person is another kind of power move, right? All right. So those were some tips for personal boundary setting, some ways to identify if you are lacking and sort of need to strengthen those. And then these 3 power reset strategies of what are your non-negotiables list? And I gave you 3 examples. What's a boundary phrase that you can use, which is thanks for thinking of me, blah, blah, blah. And then what's an audit prompt, which is internal to you. Tune into your intuition. Is this a heck yeah? Or is it I'm saying this because I don't want to let, Bob down. I don't actually know any Bobs, but whatever. It's a name that came to me. All right. So this is a great one, guys. This one changed my life. This one is relationship boundaries, right? You can care immeasurably for someone and still be able to say no to them and still have limits. This is so hard in this culture of self-sacrifice and, comparison, who's the best mom, who's the best wife, whatever. This is really hard. But boundaries in not only love, but when it comes to family, even your parents, when it comes to your kids, when it comes to siblings, when it comes to friendships, really is about preserving connection, not avoiding it. Because if you are saying yes to please them, eventually that leads to feelings of resentment, feelings of unfairness, feelings of inequity in the relationship if you are the giver and they are consistently the receiver. And so if you are overgiving, overextending, emotionally babysitting grown ass people, you're not in a relationship, you're in a role. You're in a role that is absolutely comfortable and comforting for them. And the minute you try to change or shift that, it makes them uncomfortable and inconveniences them. And that's when the tension starts. And I would say a lot of us in our middle-aged years start pushing back on those things, right? And so there's a statistic I shared in a couple episodes ago that women in their 50s, it's like the highest divorce rates. That's crazy, but it isn't. That's when, from just a basic science perspective, our estrogen is tanking and our testosterone is rising a little bit, and we just have less shits to give. And so a lot of stuff we maybe put up with just is not cutting it, right? And so a couple of ways this can manifest, right? It sounds like this. I don't want to say anything because I don't want to cause drama. Oh, that's a big one. They're always expecting me to drop everything when they call. Another big one. I'm tired of feeling like I'm the only one putting in the effort. This gets real tricky also in the sandwich generation when you maybe are the adult in the sibling bunch that has more of a responsibility with your aging parents. And your younger siblings are kind of like, la, 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 kind of lulling around. They don't really know what's happening. They kind of just check in every now and then. And it's a true place where your boundaries can bleed out. Because if you are giving, and you are it for the person that your parents call all the time, that can really feel like a burden and a weight if your siblings are not sort of contributing also to that, right? And another place this bleeds into, I have a coaching client right now, and she is really struggling because in the relationship, she also owns a multi-million-dollar business. She's an executive. She leads on a couple of boards, and she really came to me for the relationship part of this, right? Because she feels like in all of the other parts of her life pie, and I've told you in your life pie, every person's pie is different. Every slice of the pie is allocated differently, but for the most part, the ingredients in the pie are the same. Like, what is your satisfaction level with your relationships, your career, your spirituality, this concept of fun and vocation, and finances. And so a lot of us negotiate not only the roles we play for all of these, but the level of satisfaction ebbs and flows as we go through different seasons of life. But her insight was, I love my partner, but I realized I had no room to be me in that relationship. There were less boundaries around her time, her friendships, and her space. He still got to do the things that he wanted to do consistently, and she was the one that had to make all of the accommodations in spite of her high-powered job and being the breadwinner and all of those things. And she just got tired of being unavailable just for herself. When he thought a mani-pedi was kind of self-care. So some reset strategies that I used with her, and hopefully some of these will help you. A voice prompt, which is, I need space and I still care. Both of these things are true. And that's kind of a red flag if you speak up for what you need and somebody thinks that means you don't love them, right? It's kind of hard. So I need space and I still care, and both of these things are true. A mirror moment is where you ask yourself, am I shrinking to keep this connection comfortable? I had a very brief moment a couple of years ago where I had a co-founder and we led a retreat for a bunch of really powerful, amazing women. And after the retreat, her and I were sitting having dinner, what I thought was a celebratory dinner, and she really was upset. And I, of course, was super concerned because I thought everything had gone well. And she was upset because a portion of the retreat entailed grabbing each one of our attendees very quickly and kind of getting a little testimonial as to their experience. And she was upset because what was said about me was very different from what was said about her. And I was just stunned because for many of us, that's our biggest fear, is if I shine as brightly as I can, are people going to like hate me? Are they going to, think less of me? Whether, oh, you're a show off or you think you're so full of yourself or whatever. And I understood in that moment on the flight back home that we probably were not going to be doing big things together because it meant in the future, I would always be second guessing her emotions around me showing up big. And that was so hard and emotionally draining. And we tried to maintain that relationship, but it didn't work out. And so I'm saying that a mirror moment is, am I shrinking to keep this connection comfortable? And what does that mean to the goals and dreams that you have for yourself? Right? So that's a hard one. And then a reclaiming ritual as a strategy can be, can you start doing one thing a week that's just for you? No explanation. Hey man, if you want to start digging dirt and making little clay figures, if you want to pick wildflowers and decorate your hair, like there's no judgment in these things. Pick something that brings you joy. I used to sing really well when I was younger. Now, oh my God, it's horrible. I mean, I sound like a cow that's had coffee. But every now and then I will belt a few songs out at the top of my lungs, and to the mortification of my family, but dance party, karaoke of one every Sunday morning. So pick something that you want to do weekly, and you don't owe anybody any explanation for that. All right. The third big chunk of boundaries is work boundaries. And we've kind of talked, I've kind of rolled into a few of it as I talked about personal boundaries and kind of how you set those up. But you're either a leader or a lifeguard, right? You're either leading people, or your job kind of can't be to save everyone. It's to have clarity around what's your role, what's their role, what support can you give them, but you are not a diaper bag holder. I had a friend once, I love her to death, but she would leave whatever it is she was doing to go help anybody with the most mundane tasks. And her and I had I loved her to death. And I mean, we had some very strong disagreements about that. And I think that her needing to have that savior complex, that people pleasing, that, oh my God, I'm so helpful and I'm going to go over there and help you do it. And sometimes the people that she was helping, she'd help them with the same problem a number of times. These people took no notes, right? It's like, oh my God, it's like a self-serving ice cream. So your job is not to save everyone. It's a boundary that you have to maintain, right? So I want to kind of give this in a different context. This one really hit me in the gut when I was preparing for this episode. Many women confuse excellence with overextension. Busy has become this badge. I know sometimes I'm like, oh my God, how was your weekend? And then I have people that will list off 42 things and my eyes bug out because quite frankly, my weekends for the past couple of years since I quit corporate, quit my full-time executive job, high six figures, a lot of mornings are lazy on the weekends. Sometimes 11 a.m. I'm still loafing in bed, reading or watching. I mean, just hanging out, right? So busy as a badge of honor is not a way that we earn respect. It's not a way that we hold clean, clear boundaries with ourselves. And you've got to kind of ask, why do I have the need to always be this busy? What does silence, what am I avoiding if I sit in silence or if I have these lulls in activity? Like really dig into why the need to perform and show up and be performative is driving you. So what happens? What does that look like? Answering emails during dinner and calling it dedication. Absorbing others' maybe urgency if they've procrastinated as your problem. Then it becomes not them, it's a we thing. And then you are the fixer, but deep down still maybe feel underappreciated. Gross. And we do it all the time, right? And so if you are being praised for being always available or the go-to gal or guy, it's a red flag for you. It's not really a compliment, right? It's a compliment because the person that is giving it to you benefits a lot from your lack of boundaries. Man, they love that because it means less for them. They have to do less, right? And it is a fast track to burnout. Trust me. And like I said, burnout isn't always flamboyantly extravagant. It is tiny little things that creep up on you. It's that extra 5 to 8 pounds a year that's suddenly 50, 60 pounds more. It is the lack of sleeplessness that turns into anxiety or maybe even medication. It is a hugely unhealthy diet of fast food because you don't have time to prep. It is coming home to your family that you love so much or your partner or your dog and just being impatient because you've extended all of your energy and enthusiasm on other things, right? So here are some reset strategies for maintaining work boundaries. And I gave you some of them. I'm just going to tell you the ones that I love to recommend to clients because they work. Office hour rules. You're going to set email hours and stick to them. Oh my God. Listen to the people crying on the inside with that one. Yeah. You don't have to interrupt your thought pattern or your deep thinking if you hear a ping. And we're so wired, right? Like I'm sitting here, my phone is turned down and I'm just like, I saw it blink and I was like, seriously, we're so conditioned to be quote unquote responsive and on all the time. And so set some email hours. For me, it used to be 9 to 11. And then again, I think 2 to 3 or whatever. Use autoresponders if needed. You can say that, right? And for Teams, I know a lot of you use Teams, Microsoft Teams. It's another way to do it. Workload check. Before saying yes, ask, does this align with your priorities or is it just people-pleasing tendencies? I remember I used to be the go-to girl, right? And then when you are the go-to person and your boss whom you admire and respect deeply brings you another project that maybe somebody didn't do well or they need last minute edits and you are the person that they know is going to work late and get it done for you. And that feels really good. But there was a time I literally pulled out 20 things I was working on and I asked my boss, which of these can I put on the back burner to take care of these other things? They didn't like that at all. And I felt kind of shitty because I felt like I was not being a team player. I felt like I was letting them down. And again, it was my feelings. That's another power play. Control your feelings and your reactions and your emotions to these things, right? So yeah, I asked, quite frankly, what are your priorities on this list of 20 things I'm working on? What can we move so that I can accommodate you? And you best believe they went back and found someone else. Another reset strategy is giving your team clarity. There are some people that are environments where the boss may say, oh, I'm going to send you emails after hours. I don't expect you to respond to it, but they do. Or you see others responding and now you feel compelled to, right? So model boundaries if you are in charge of people. Model boundaries for your team. Normalize rest, man, right? Celebrate getting things done, not just being busy. Like allow for that, right? All right. And the final one, my favorite juicy one, is leadership boundaries, which is a bit different from just managing people and team dynamics. Where to start? When you uphold boundaries, you really invite a deeper relationship. I know that's hard to think through, but there is a level of trust when somebody knows that you have their back and their best interest at heart that cannot be specified enough. And that trust factor is what builds loyalty. I remember my husband was in a job that was terrible in terms of lack of boundaries. And it was one of those situations where the classic reorg. So they reorged and of course did away with a few people. And then he had to pick up not only a couple new people, but a couple laggards, right? I call them laggards, people that you don't quite know what to do with. They're non-performers. And it really did a number on him. And he became, for a little while, somebody I didn't recognize. He's tense and exhausted and, oh my God, always on. And he left that job. And for a little bit, we decided he would just tap out, right? And just for a couple of months, breathe. And now he's in a position where he really has a leader that values, respects, appreciates, in fact, encourages boundaries, encourages time, loves that my husband is so passionate about jujitsu and the only time he has a lot of energy is in the morning. And so if he trains twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that meant coming into the office later on those days and working later, allowing him to do that and having grace if he had to work from home for something, like having a leader that not only teaches boundaries and how they show up and how they live, but really pushing you to do the same. And not only preaching self-care, but modeling it is a different form of leadership. And yeah, I mean, the level of trust that they have and the level of loyalty and the performance and the honestly contentment that he has with his job now really stems from that valuing, appreciating, understanding not only what his core values are, what his non-negotiables are, having the conversation with his leader, having a leader that is accountable, amendable to that. And then it's just a true relationship where you can cut through the noise and get the job done, right? And a senior executive that I work with, she recently did something similar, had literally a meeting where she got really vulnerable about some health diagnoses that she had having to do with high blood pressure, so hypertension. Again, she was pre-diabetic and just not doing her best. And she was going to start doing some things differently and really called in the team to share that in a way that she hadn't done before. And many of us maybe shy away from doing that, but also invite them to share with her things that could be done differently in their business. And so the result of that was a team effort towards a more healthier, vibrant, productive environment. And I loved that that culture shifted because she had that clarity, right? And so some reset strategies for leaders can include a boundary statement. Here's what I'm available for, and here's what I'll be delegating. Wow, it sounds simple. Micromanaging is a form of control that doesn't serve anyone because you enable people to just need babysitting all the time, but you also, they don't learn. You can't take the leave and rest and have the confidence to actually grow and try bigger things that you would want to. So it's kind of this yucky, crazy eight, right? You keep going kind of around and around and getting nowhere. Create and generate a feedback culture. This is a micro strategy that is amazing where you use opportunities around boundaries to create clarity. So it isn't a no, it's maybe a not right now. When you think about my priorities list and maybe asking for that feedback where I said, hey, I've got 20 things here. What are your priorities? What can I backburn so I can take care? Sounds like this new thing is a priority for you. But it creates clarity. It creates calm. It creates maybe a better dialogue about what's important. Because if everything's important, man, nothing is, right? And then the leader mirror, much like the one we talked about earlier when we were talking about kind of personal strategies, is what are my boundaries teaching my team about leadership? For a lot of us that are entrepreneurs or small business owners, we are sometimes the leadership team. And if I work with a lot of people that have family-owned businesses and are talking about succession planning. And there's a real rub there because generationally, everybody's coming at this differently, right? You've got the boomers and the Gen Xers with the millennials, and they're like, oh my God. And so teaching them, not only the elders teaching the younger generations, but the younger generations can also teach us about different ways of living. I just came from the Boca Raton Chamber of Commerce. We have a leads group meeting every other Wednesday at 8 a.m. And there was a presentation done by one of my colleagues, and his boss shared that he had taken a month vacation with his family and toured the Hawaiian Islands. And he was very emotional when he shared that. He has 4 kids, I think, from the photo. And he said it was something that was immeasurably a bonding experience for his family. And one of the main things that jarred him into doing that was working with an executive coach who really shared this powerful narrative. I talk about this all the time, that especially in midlife, we only have a certain number of summers left. And I always say midlife, for those of you that are in denial, starts about 38, yeah, and runs into our 50s. And if our life expectancy is about 75, 80 years old, some of us maybe have 15 summers left. And so for him, it was massively important to curate this time to have that connection with his young family. And what that meant, I asked him, well, what are 3 things that he would share that it would enable other people to do something like that? And he said that, number 1, it was a mindset shift, right? Overcoming that fear of failure, that something was going to, detonate when he wasn't there. Number 2 was letting everybody know 10 months in advance that he had planned to do this. So there would be no surprises. They could kind of line things up. And then 3, trusting and sort of empowering his team to do the things that needed to be done while he was gone. And I found that to be so remarkable because it is a leadership lesson, right? A master class in not only boundary setting, but sustaining and understanding what your core values are. And I really loved the idea of that. So as I wrap up, hopefully this was an episode that really got you thinking about these 4 pillars of boundaries that you can start tackling: personal boundaries, relationship boundaries, career boundaries, and leadership boundaries. Imperative for a more happier, fulfilled life, right? And boundaries, I don't want you to think of boundaries as barriers where these things are designed to keep experiences and people and things out. Think of it as bridges, bridges back to deeper connection, bridges back to reconnecting with yourself, bridges back to having more energy, right? Boundaries tell you, most importantly, and others that you know your worth. You protect your space, you protect your peace. You're working and you're coming at life from a place of wholeness and integrity and not hustle and hecticness and, exhaustion. I started this podcast, but how many of us are tired or woke up and said the first thing we said was, I'm tired. So here's your challenge this week. Of all of the things I shared with you, pick one strategy that maybe needs a reset. Just one, right? We talk about micro shifts and 2 millimeter kind of changes. Honor it like your life depends on it. Test drive it. See how it feels. Add them as you see fit, right? And I don't want to say, not to be dramatic, but for a lot of us, if you stack these lack of boundaries and you stack the areas upon which we have lack of boundaries, one on top of the other, there are consequences to that, right? And so the next time someone says, can you squeeze this in? Can you jump on this call real quick? Can you do XYZ? Ask yourself, is this another form of people pleasing dressed up as leadership, right? So this is your moment to really choose yourself, choose clarity, create spaces for more peace, more prosperity. And you've already done, I was talking to our producer, Ethan. Shout out to you, Ethan. And we talked about a tagline and I was like laughing. I didn't realize I say this in a lot of episodes, but I do, which is, you've already done the status quo. It's time to go beyond. And I hope that today's episode really did that for you. If you loved this episode, if you learned anything from this episode, I would so appreciate you sharing this with a friend, liking, subscribing to my channel, and also giving me a review. I just did some statistics. I'm in the latter part of, I think, maybe 35 episodes, and we are in about 20 countries and 32 states here in the United States. Some of the countries were surprising. And I also kind of, on my social media, you can follow me. I'm on Instagram at Stacey.Luces. And also LinkedIn, Stacey Luces. I shared kind of a little graphic about the episodes that have been resonating the most with listeners. And so I thank you for that feedback and for engaging. And I hope that we continue. And I will catch you next week.